Home. A fundamental need since the dawn of humankind. A universal aspiration shaped by specific needs, depending on where we live on the planet. A harmonious interplay of material and emotional components, personal and shared experiences. Home. A fundamental need since the dawn of humankind. A universal aspiration shaped by specific needs, depending on where we live on the planet. A harmonious interplay of material and emotional components, personal and shared experiences. Infinitely small individual homes and our infinitely vast shared home, the planet. A challenge that's never been more essential for society, to reconcile performance and comfort while preserving resources. As historical market leaders, we now have the responsibility and the power to better inhabit the world, making. For more than 350 years, we are manufacturers and distributors. We design materials and solutions that have a tangible, positive impact on people's lives, including the way they work, take care of themselves, and travel. The world. We are a worldwide, multi-local organization with a global ambition to protect our planet and invent a more sustainable future. A better, dedicated with continuously improving and innovating. Our teams work hand in hand with our partners to imagine solutions that enhance people's individual quality of life and address the social, societal, and environmental challenges facing the planet. We care about our employees, our customers, and our communities. Home. We build places that spark dreams and aspirations. And we work every day to make the world a more beautiful and more sustainable home for us all to live in. Making the world a better home. That's our purpose.
Welcome to the Gyprock product installation video series. Today we are going to show you how to install the Rhinoboard 12.5mm drywall board. The Rhino Board brand has been in existence for over 50 years, with our range of Rhino Board boards manufactured locally. Our Rhino Board range of plasterboards are suitable for most applications where normal fire and acoustic levels are specified. For the purpose of this video, please note that our Rhino Board 12.5mm board was installed onto a pre-installed gyp frame ultra steel wall frame and insulated with our Isiver cavity bat. You will need the following tools to complete this project. Before getting started, ensure that the external walls are closed before installing drywall in order to protect the boards against possible weather damage. Measure the space where your board will be installed, from the floor to the underside of the ceiling. Once the right size of the ceiling has been determined, subtract 10mm from that measurement. This 10mm measurement helps with the compression space between the roof or soffit and the floor. Take that measurement and measure along both sides, left-hand side and right-hand side of the Rhino board, making the two marks. Where they meet is called a benchmark. Use the chalk line to draw a straight line in the center of the board through the benchmark. Place the utility knife along the chalk line from the face side. From the top side towards yourself, cut only once. Once cut, lift the board horizontally. Then proceed to pull the board towards you from the uncut side, snapping the board. Cut the paper from the back side, top to bottom, and snip off the offcuts. Use a rasp to smoothen out the sides. Measure 600mm from one side, either top or bottom of the board, to the middle of the board and make a mark. Measure another 600mm and make a mark again, creating a benchmark. Using the chalk line, draw a straight line through the benchmark. Our Rhino Board 12.5mm boards come with screw center markings, saving you time and allowing for accurate placing of the sharp point drywall screws as required. Proceed to take the piece of board to the installation area. Lift the board and place it against the wall frame. Place one Gyprock 25mm sharp point screw, approximately 50mm from the top of the board, and place another screw 50mm from the bottom of the board on the same side, using a drywall screw gun. Repeat this for the other side. Finally, measure 220mm from the bottom screw to the ceiling for all screws, and fix all screws at the indicated marks. You've now completed the installation of the 12.5mm board. Compared to a single skin plastered brick wall, using our Isiver cavity bat insulation in the 12.5mm Rhino board drywall system offers you improved and significant reduction of acoustic energy transference from one room to another. For more information, visit the Gyprock website on www.gyprock.co.za. Rhino board. Not just any plasterboard. It's the original Rhino board.
At Crown, we help you express yourself through colour.
Mr. President, we acknowledge the presence of Honorable Dr. Frida Prempe from the Ministry of Works and Housing. Now we come to the nucleus of this evening's program, that is discussing the theme. And we will have a panel discussion. So please, when you hear your name, can you kindly come up here for me? Architect Samuel Amegaivo, pardon me if I don't get the name right. Can we please usher him with some warm applause? Sorry, you are not an architect. Pardon me. We have Mr. Zola Ahaji, Hola Ahaji. Please, are you here? He's not? Can I call on the Social Secretary of the Ghana Institute of Architects to confirm some of the names for me, please? So I've been given the authority to shift one of the items on our program before we zoom in into the panel discussion. So without further ado, we will call on Honorable Dr. Frida Prempeh to give us a message. Honorable Dr. Frida Prempeh. Please, can we give it to her? Please, you can do better. You can do better.
There's something which is so dear to my heart because it didn't come overnight. So if you introduce Dr. Frida Prempeh, you don't mention that you've left something very big out of my introduction. So I'm the Member of Parliament for Tano North constituency in the Hafo region of Ghana. If you don't talk about the fact that I'm a Minister of State, I don't mind, but the Member of Parliament wasn't end overnight, so I appreciate it so much. And good evening. I bring you greetings from the Minister for Works and Housing. He's with the President touring the Ashanti region. I was also in the Hafo region, but he called me this morning to attend this program on his behalf, so I got back from the constituency not too long ago. And so I'm reading his speech. I'm reading the speech for Honorable Asenso Bache. I've had the opportunity to interact with ARC for a while when I was the Deputy Minister for Works and Housing. And so at least I know some few faces around here. Went to Gender Ministry and now back at the ministry as a Minister of State for Works and Housing. Mr. Chairman, President of the Ghana Institute of Architects, distinguished architects, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, the media, all other protocol once again. The World Architect Day, celebrated annually on the first Monday of October by Global Federation of the National Associations of Architects, means architects and all of us will be assessing our contributions to the environment over the period and making new resolutions for better situations. The theme for this year's Architects' Day, Clean Environment for a Healthy World, and the Ghana Institute of Architects sub-theme, The Future of Our Cities, showcasing the Ghanaian architect. Therefore, could not have been made more suitable specifically for the persistent onslaught of the COVID-19 pandemic. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I believe this is a very brief ceremony, so I'm going to make my presentation very short. The era of the pandemic has called for critical evaluation of societies and economies worldwide. It has called for critical evaluation of the role of leadership, profession, and citizenry. Terms as isolation, social distancing, stay at home, and simple tasks like washing of hands have acquired a new currency in our public discourse and elucidates the need for attitudinal change and honest actions. With these new realities, it has become abundantly clear that architects and all built environment professionals should adopt proper approaches and trends that will shape the environment for better and healthy living as captured by the world theme. It requires collaboration from policy to implementation and lifestyle. As professionals in charge of every space, you have the responsibility to advocate and ensure that lifestyles adjust appropriately through your professional contribution to environmentally friendly and energy efficient infrastructure development, even beyond the SDG goals. Ghana's recent draft population and housing census report has put our population at 30.8 million, with indications of increase in urbanization and therefore more pressure on our cities. Unfortunately, we cannot boast of smart growth of our cities. We continue to report large deficits in national housing, particularly in the urban areas, and we continue sprawling instead of vertical development, though we are clearly aware of the corresponding challenges of land, inadequate roads, infrastructure, and all the necessary utilities. This pattern must change. The sub-theme from the GIA is calling for this change. The change must come from leadership and our professionals working together. The government acknowledges the immense role architects and all related professionals are playing in the built environment and is committed to coming with the necessary forward and backward linkages. So let me assure you that very soon there will be work for all professionals in the built industry. Thank you. It is time for our built environment professionals to be proactive and make substantial input of their highly specialized services and technical advice in the district housing project when knowledge of their existence is either upset or greatly underutilized, yet much needed. I think we've grown out of those days when we used to see, they were not being called architects. They used to have this big table where they'll put this big sheet on it and start drawing and all that. But when the dynamics have changed, now we have 3Ds, we have all that, so we are growing. And we want to applaud our Ghanaian architects for their support. And I must say that if you engage the services of an architect, you save a lot of money, you save a lot of time, you save a lot of space. Because you know your BOQ, you know how much you have to spend on electricity, you know how much you have to spend on other utilities. But most of the time, you get people still engaging people who are not professionals. I think it's about time that we all change the dynamics. And I'm happy that the National Cathedral, the architect is from Ghana. The COVID ICU Center, we have our own brother who just received an award also from Ghana. So Ghanaian architects, once again, on behalf of the ministry, we applaud you and we thank you for your services. It will be most significant if GIA could embark on initiatives to adopt these districts and enlighten them on issues of physical development. This would greatly complement government's efforts with the private sector in opening the nation up for the provision of vertical infrastructure, such as the housing units, and horizontal infrastructure and services such as roads, water supply, and electricity for these communities. The Ministry of Works and Housing, and for that matter, government, is advocating for alternative building materials. We want to think outside the box. We've been used to using our own brick and tile, but when you travel outside this country, you see a lot of other alternative building materials. Even in the US, where they sell houses for millions of dollars, are built with what? Wood. Go to Europe or European countries, they are built with bricks and other alternative building materials. So we should think outside the box, and I believe with your support, we'll be able to get there. To this end, we celebrate you, our gallant architects, for your significant and continuous discourses and attempts to close the yawning gap in our infrastructure needs, and your enormous efforts to ensure our environments are safe, convenient, and livable under all circumstances. I once again wish you a happy World Architecture Day. May God continue to bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. And please, pardon me, Honorable Member from Tano North Constituency, Member of Parliament. Yes, it's not a joke, so pardon me. All right, so we will take a quick sponsors interlude from seconds whilst we rearrange and continue with the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
At Crown, we help you express yourself through colour. So whatever your personality, Crown can bring it out. Because to us, it's not just paint, it's personal. At Crown, we help you express yourself through colour. So whatever your personality, Crown can bring it out. Because to us, it's not just paint, it's personal. At Crown, we help you express yourself.
All right, so can we have architect Hola Haji to come in front for us, please? Architect Hola. Right. Please. The panel just told me that it is overloaded with a lot of architects, so they want someone who has a lot of experience from the municipal assemblies and the MMDAs. That's why architect Hola Haji has come up. Thank you very much. Right, so I'll introduce architect Akusia Mensah to moderate this session for us. And she's already come up, very, very proactive. Can we please give it up to her? So she will be the moderator for this session. Thank you very much. Enjoy.
Hello. Thank you, Daniel. I was brought here because we were told there were too many men here, so I've come to bring gender balance. So we welcome all our panelists this evening. Just 1 second. Okay, so our discussion this evening is based on our theme, the future of our cities, showcasing the Ghanaian architect. The committee picked this theme because we wanted to bring the main theme from the international stage into the local context. And we felt that we couldn't have a downstream discussion when, in our local context, the value of the architect is not recognized. And so we wanted to showcase Ghanaian architects. We wanted to introduce the public to the faces behind the buildings that they know and love, and let them know that we have the capability to do what our international colleagues can do. For the context of this discussion, I just want to define a few keywords. And the first is a sustainable city. A sustainable city is an urban center engineered to improve its environmental impact through urban planning and management. And an example of such a city, you can picture parks, green spaces, solar-powered buildings, rooftop gardens, more pedestrians and cyclists than cars. And another key word we'll be using in this discussion is a livable city. And for the purpose of this discussion, we define it as a city that is attractive for residents to live in terms of clean air, affordable housing, prevention of crime, prevention of floods, which is key to us, and then prevention of traffic accidents. And our last key definition is a clean city, which we took from the main theme. And for the purposes of this discussion, a clean city is a city free from pollution and environmental degradation. So this definition can be extended to include greenery if one wishes. For example, a city that has more trees than buildings can be said to be free from environmental problems, as we know that trees purify the air and maintain the cycle of nature. So with that, we will start with our first question. And we would like to know from each of our panelists what their thoughts are on the future of our city, our cities, as we continue to pursue our developmental agenda in the face of many challenges, including those posed by COVID-19, the COVID-19 pandemic. Any one of you can go first.
All right, thank you, Akosi. I think if I'm able to start, I think I can get a bit more information, and then you rob the rest of the panelists of a bit of information. Honorable Minister, fellows of the Ghanaians of Architects, fellow architects, good evening, and I am happy to be here. Our cities, I think the story doesn't look good from what we have, from what we have here in terms of infrastructure, in terms of how our cities are being managed, in terms of the human resources that we put into the management of our cities. More importantly, the lack of visionary expression of what we want to have our cities to be. I mean, I'm sure when we all travel to other places around the world and we see very beautiful open spaces, clean cities, not just carbon emissions and all that, but the fact that, you know, the city itself is riddled with rubbish and then the polythene bags and all that. And unfortunately, those who can afford to live in certain enclaves, like the airport hills and the Regimanuels, try to clean their spaces, and then everywhere else around them becomes, you know, not their business. What most urbanists call NIMBY, not in my backyard. So for me, it doesn't look too good. We have too many uncompleted structures. There are too many kiosks and too many containers, that is, and the whole space is very unregulated. I'm sure my colleagues will talk about even finance. We'll talk about a lot of things. The story doesn't look good. So on such a day like this, what we want to do is to be able to rehash the issues that our cities could have been better. Thank you. I think I'll use this to start off. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening. Honorable Minister, my friend, you are welcome. And all the executives of past executive of Ghana Institute of Architects, and all other persons present here. I'm very happy to be here. It's only that initially I was ambushed into the midst of architects, and some of them were my friends. So when they heard that my name has been given a title, Architect Samia Megaibo, then there was small trouble. I'm not an architect. As you know, my name, Samia Megaibo, has become synonymous with GREDA, Ghana Real Estate Developers Association. So I'm a developer, even though I've also studied and I'm also a professional in the built environment. Now, our topic for today, I find it very relevant to our current situation. Like my senior brother said, Tony said, that the situation doesn't look good. It doesn't look good, but the question is now, who caused harm? Who is making it not good? That might be that either we are not performing our duties as professionals, or the system is not helping us to perform our duties as professionals. So my first question is, what is the level of public awareness of the duties of the architect in the agenda of development, infrastructure development within the country Ghana? How much does the public know who an architect is and what the architect does when it comes to development? So I am particularly sad for one particular reason. It looks like draftsmen have hijacked the job of the architect. And now a lot of people don't even know the difference. Most of the draftsmen are parading themselves around as architects. And I don't know what we are doing about it to curb the situation. And they don't understand what they should understand when it comes to designing and the development agenda, especially as magnificent as cities. And so I think we need to sit up a bit and let the people know who we are. The doctor has a nurse who assists him to execute his job. So I can see the same trend when it comes to the built environment. The architect's support is the draftsman. But it has become the vice versa. Everybody who wants to develop, especially those who are developing very small projects, the first point of call is the draftsman. It's either they are thinking the architect is too expensive or other factors come into it. But for me, when we are looking at the general development infrastructure, the architect is number one. In fact, architects are the point of call for any infrastructure development before the other professionals are brought on board, such as the structural engineer, the QSs, and all the other mechanical engineers and all the rest that play the role to bring cities together. And so I think for my intro, I want us to rethink and take our space, take our position in this space of infrastructure development, and let the draftsmen also know where they belong to and do their work. We work together. But for us to relegate our responsibility for our nurses to take over our job as doctors in terms of the built environment, I think it is not fair. And it is not helping our situation. And so we must do something about it. And let's sell ourselves. I mean, there are so many massive and projects that Ghanaian architects have undertaken. But a lot of us don't even know that they were done by Ghanaians. And I think the paradigm must change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Honorable Minister, senior members, I am coming from the Assembly's point of view. Maybe from the government sector, from regulation and management. That's where I'm coming from. So maybe what I'm saying might be very different from what the others are saying. I think that there's a future for architects and for the development of our cities. Once we realize that there's so much to be done, then it is an opportunity for us to cash in as architects and do something about it. But before an architect can put a structure in any space, there should be a plan. And although I cannot say that we have a master plan for our country all over, there are plans for various areas, from the central business district right through to the rural areas. A lot of plans are not available in the rural areas especially, but I would like to use Accra as an example. Why do I say that there's a future for architects and a future for our profession? Let's just look at AMA. When you go to the central business, the new building, you will see that there are some triangular spaces just around the main building. And if you are very observant, you would see that for a long time, they have not been grassed, they've not been landscaped, but all of a sudden, it is becoming green and it's becoming nice. Now, where do architects come in? It would be good if architects could put together schemes for such open spaces and present them to the assemblies. I think that's where it can start from. In the built environment, it is only architects who understand the dimensions of space. When you talk about streetscape, when you talk about heights of buildings, and so on and so forth, architects can appreciate that better. Now, that can also help when designs are properly done to give the environment a clean one. Assemblies do not have a lot of qualified architects. In fact, I remember that we went to a meeting at Cape Coast not too long ago, about 3 years ago, and I found out that in all the meeting, for the whole southern sector, there were only 4 architects in the meeting, where we have quantity surveyors and we have planners. And even the planners, most of them were technicians. I said we have hope because more architects are coming out of school. At least we do not have only one architectural school now in the country. We have at least 2. And also, those who qualify are increasing in number. The new one that joined KNUST is now churning out more architects than we used to have. But what do we have to do? What we have to do as architects is to get close to the assemblies and use our skills to provide ideas that can make the city better. And then I believe that the management sector or aspect of the work could also become better, since we don't have a lot of architects at the assembly. I just went on retirement in April from AMA. And the question now is, so how many architects do we have there now? There is only one architect there who just finished national service and has just been employed. So you can imagine if we have a young architect managing AMA. I'm not talking about Accra, I'm talking about AMA. Because I believe a lot of architects don't even know that AMA ends at Octagon, goes all the way to Makola, to Circle, and back. That's AMA. So even the presidency is not in Accra. It's in some place called Ayawa Soul something. I hope you catch what I'm trying to say now. But when you are coming from the roundabout, the motorway roundabout, and you see that even the landscaping is not properly being done, you say AMA is not doing well. That is not AMA. But the question is that in that jurisdiction, do we have any architect there? The answer is no. So I can say that the whole of Accra, we have only one architect who just completed school. I mean, so the opportunities are there. So what we have to do is that most of us don't want to join the assemblies to help in the management because of, yes.
No curfew, because no curfew. So from all, sorry, Cecil. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Member of Parliament. I think you said it all in your speech. Good evening, honorable members. It gives me great honor to be on this panel. I'm calling myself the moderator of the panelists. Yes. Tony is a seasoned architect. Samuel, we all know, is the executive secretary of GRIDA, and the retired Hola has so much to offer. I want us to look at a different dimension of architecture. I want you to picture being a foreigner and coming to Ghana and coming to Kotoka and then driving through our streets without anybody talking to you. I mean, what's the image you see? Do you see chaos? Do you see beauty? Do you see order? What hits you without anybody telling you about Ghana? Suddenly we realize that the streetscape, like you mentioned, is the most powerful message we send to people coming into our country. There's no way a foreigner would say we are organized when he sees people trying to clamp people who haven't parked well at the airport, or he sees some nice patches of grass, and then the next one is sand, and then he sees hawkers on the streets and some people in cars, and he really can't paint a picture, or she really can't paint a picture of what Ghana is. Architects have been relegated to grand buildings and amazing structures, whereas you realize that we are part of the very fabric of society. When you talk about a city, who's in the city? Who's the target group of a city? You might think it's a upmarket person or a worker or a government official, but the cocoa seller is also in the city. The wachi seller is in the city. The hawkers are in the city. And they all have to be provided for. It seems as if we turn a blind eye to whom and what makes up a city. The only people who can look at that holistic streetscape, peoplescape, economic scape, and the like are architects. I've had a discussion, I believe with Tony before, how even bad urban planning can cause stress in your marriage. You know, you're going home, and I mean, the car park, the drive home is very regular. The streets are not well planned. People are crossing you, and they're like, you get home stressed. You're driving through the streets. I mean, you know, almost in your scene, stop work, produce permit, AMA, demolishing this. They're all little subtle things that cause stress. And there are studies. I'm sure a lot of you have gone to all sorts of places, or even forget about traveling abroad. When you just leave Accra and you see the greens and you're driving and you feel at peace. But when you're driving in some of our cities, next thing you know, you are fighting like the Trotro people. You know, so it's just to say that architects, number one, we're not relegated to only grandiose buildings. We also cater for all walks of life, and ours is to enhance that life. Ghana, we have a challenge in that, yes, we are creating cities, but at the same time, we have to look at our cultural context. We have to provide spaces and amenities for those who also support the so-called city dwellers. So on that note, I think to my fellow architects who I know are very well versed in some of the things I'm saying, we have to step up our game and make our presence more appreciated, that we can do both the highs and the lows. We have to engage government more as to why we can enhance what they want to portray the country to be and what image we want to look in respect of our vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So from the responses that I got, it's clear that building livable, sustainable, clean cities is a result of the hard work of a network of building and city professionals. And I mean, I think we know this as professionals. We are aware of this. But there seems to be a disconnect between us and the key stakeholders in this. Because I always say that architects always sprinkle magic into every situation. Architects touch a situation or touch a building or an area and instantly improve well-being, instantly improve user experience. And it's a shame that we're not bringing this architect's magic into our cities. So my next question is, how do we, like practically, how do we get the key stakeholders to buy into this idea of sustainable, livable cities and accept the critical role that architects play in all this? And because of what Mr. Ahati said, also, how do we get, as a part B of that question, how do we get our own members to enter into these areas that we are learning, have a deficit of architects, the assemblies and these other municipal institutions?
Yeah, Madam Moderator. This is a very, very important aspect of the work of the architect that is done at the assembly level. Now, the main work that is done by an architect at the assembly level involves vetting of drawings and submissions for development. Now, you would see that it is the architect who has an overview of everybody else's work. Now, at the assembly level, you would see that when drawings are submitted, the requirements are there in the National Building Regulations, but it looks as if every professional wants to do their own work in their own way. When drawings are submitted, you will realize that the architectural portion is endorsed by an architect, and then the engineering portion is endorsed by an engineer. Apart from that, nobody else endorses. And when you look at the drawings, you realize that truly there is a disconnect. The services don't seem to flow properly with the architecture and the engineering. So you can see that they did not sit together or did not bring ideas together.
Not to interrupt, but if we can mention the key stakeholders who are involved in the planning and development of our cities, and how we as architects can interact with them to ensure that we are able to develop the livable, sustainable, clean cities that we all hope for Ghana.
I'm coming to that place. I'm just building up.
Okay. We don't have a lot of time, so
Okay.
if we
So
can
let me just go.
summarize.
Let me just summarize. Now, what's happening is that, like I said from the beginning, the architect is supposed to be the leader in coming out with any scheme. But then we have the planner, who is supposed to be a part. We have the civil engineer. We have environmentalists. We have structural engineers. We have mechanical engineers, where we have mechanical issues like lift and so on and so forth. We also have the politician. Yeah. Yes. Because they come up with the policies, even though it started from the architect discussions that are held. When we come out, even with the national building regulations and the building code and so on and so forth, there's so many people who are involved in it. But at the end of the day, there's supposed to be a plan. And this plan, the architect is supposed to oversee and make sure that all the things are put together in such a way that when it is finally implemented, it will enhance our livelihood and it will also make it very sustainable. Now, let me just pick one area which can help all of us, especially because my brother made mention of a place like well-developed areas like East Legon, Trasacco, and so on and so forth. Now then, the areas around do not look good. Yeah, it's because in planning, the rich or those that can afford better facilities do not make any plans to take on those who would service them. Now, so in order to be able to give us a livable,
sustainable, clean cities.
Yes, a livable place. It doesn't take only the rich. It takes both the rich and then those that will service them. So if we start thinking this way and we do our designs, then we will see that our streetscapes will be fine. Now, let me give an example of streetscape. Street furniture is so critical, and yet when architects are designing, we don't include street furniture. So generally you see that is left completely in the hands of people who are not really professionals. So you see all kinds of signboards, billboards in a very disorderly manner. Meanwhile, we are trained as architects to ensure that those things can make the place livable and also sustainable. When somebody is walking around a street and he sees that the place is not clean, there is one piece of debris somewhere, he also throws another one and it adds up and it heaps up. Now, for a place where rich people live or people who can afford live, they can clean the place very easily. What about the other side? So I'm saying that architects can play a very strong role if architects join the assemblies and then all the other professionals in planning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what role can we play also from the outside, apart from joining the MDDAs?
I want to disagree a bit with Architect Haji. I mean, for very obvious reasons. You see, the public sector works with laws. And the laws, based on the laws, they come up with their budget, annual budget, and then they spend accordingly. So if you are not supposed to be buying flowers for the department by law, if you go and buy it, you can be taken to public account committee so that you'll be simply asked why you did it when you didn't have the authorization. If you look at our Land Use and Spatial Planning Act, the Act 925, it reveals some very worrying laws there that shows how far our apathy has gone and how it has even affected some of these laws and the rules. As architects, the most important thing to us when we design is our design philosophy before we go into the conceptual development, before we churn out the design. So the question is, in the whole of the planning apparatus, the whole structure, who is responsible for initiating the vision of what we want to do within a certain planning enclave? Who is it? Strangely, the person who is responsible for the whole of the planning is the district coordinating director. The district coordinating director actually has just an administrative role. So the person who sits there, who is supposed to decide that we should have our parks here, we should have our gardens there, we should have this kind of drainage, the drainage should not be covered and all that. Mind you, the district assemblies by law are those who are supposed to prosecute the infrastructure development and monitor that in that particular district. So if the person who sits there, the qualification of the person who goes to manage the vision of that particular settlement is supposed to have just administrative roles, no planning roles, no physical development training, no architectural role, then it means that already we have a problem with the structure. That is one. There is also that whole political structure which I think we need to be able to start debating. And it calls on, in fact, it is the same issue of when we wanted to decide whether our DC is elected. Somehow, all of us as architects have started running away from these strong political issues. The question is, if the president appoints a district chief executive, who is he responsible to? Is it to that immediate constituent or to the presidency? Because we worry about that fragmented connection, because the authority in that district rests with the district chief executive, right? So we need to be able to find out what kind of qualification at all that do we get. Look, some of the district chief executives that I have met going around this country, you sometimes wonder what they'll be doing there. Meanwhile, they are the people who have the authority. And you know what? We try to touch these things with very kids' gloves, and then we do not want to deal with some of these things. They are political rules, but they are powerful. So we need to be able to find out that agent who is supposed to be there to prosecute the development agenda of the presidency's political agenda. We need to be able to look at that. The other thing that we also need to look at is that if you look at the new planning law, the law says that the assembly is supposed to have a public data room where all the plans in that district are supposed to be displayed. And because it is there, we are supposed to have planners at the various district assemblies to be able to man these public data rooms, so that when I go and I want to know what kind of land use that is going to come to my backyard, I will know what it is. And it is in the law. It's been there since 2016. 7 years, right? But let's ask ourselves, for 13 years in our faculty, we stopped training physical planners. For 13 years, we stopped. So sometimes some of these things it's a mix of politics, kakra, our own doing small, that kind of thing. And we have been at this thing for a very long time. Look, if we as architects do not decide that we are now going to be in the trenches when these laws are being formulated, when some of these things are published by Parliament, we get very busy. We get go and do work on our sites. Nothing will happen. So it is a mix of all of these things. The whole system as it is now, we need to be able to understand. If it is democracy that we want to understand, then we need to be able to engage the right places, get the right laws done, get the right people assigned, so that when they sit there and they have to perform their works, then they can do it. That's it. Thank you.
If I don't need to comply with certain regulations and nobody will come and check me out. I do whatever I like. Building permit, acquisition and all that. A lot of people have developed without any of these things. We will see stop work on the wall. These days I heard the stop works are written by the developer himself. He writes it and he adds a date to it. So he himself decides when he will check himself. And when the project is done, he quietly uses a cement mortar or something and rubs over the paint. So, I mean, we need to sit. We need to sit. Basic building regulations. People build their houses. The next time you pass there, they've cemented the whole compound. Who is checking this? There are rules and regulations that, it's incumbent on you to leave some spaces for greenery and all that. Who is checking all that? Everybody is doing what he likes. We have become lawless. So if we have become lawless, how do we ensure that we develop within sustainability? Because we are thinking of our future as well. Some of us are thinking of today only. But if we don't do the right thing, there is no future for our children. And so we need to sit up as professionals and take our space and ensure that we do what we are expected to do within the space. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm enjoying the panel more than, just sitting here. So I have a few things to talk about. I'm sure you've seen some of the flyovers, the new flyovers. They have, what's the underside of a flyover, Madam Moderator? What's the underside? Some of them they have stones.
Yeah.
You've seen the stones and then the barbed wires and the like.
Yeah.
That looks like we're in a prison camp. What message are we sending to people? We as architects, are we giving alternatives?
It's a lazy solution, Instead of designing to fit how we are, we've just decided to, like you were saying before, we have to take into consideration both the rich and the poor who service the rich. Mm-hmm. And this is a solution that is directly telling the poor that you are not welcome here.
You're not welcome there, yes. I saw a homeless man the other day, and I think it was raining, and he was outside the barbed wire of the fence. And, that could have been a cover.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I saw a bench in a public space that maybe a boy and girl could sit in and talk. I can't remember the last time I saw a park, and children's park has been closed for God knows how long. and like one of I think it was Sami said, we're all building and concreting our compounds, but isn't that what everyone is doing? Aren't we becoming a reflection of our country? Do we like greens? When people buy land, the first thing they do is clear the whole place, cut off all the trees. And our society we are reflecting a very wrong, side of us. So when you talk about sustainability, first we have to look at we, the Ghanaian people. How do we understand our sustainability? Do we appreciate that all these trees that were planted so many years ago have brought us this far, have kept us safe from pandemics and the like? It was interesting when the pandemic occurred, and I used to see all sorts of luxury cars parked by the roadside, pulling the neem trees into their cars because they said, now it's the neem tree that can protect you. Yeah, but what if there are no neem trees? What will happen in the next 50 years pandemic and we've cleared everything? It was sad seeing children walking along a road and there was a pavement up to maybe this person's house, but the next person had put his wall right up to the road to save that extra 4 feet. So now the children had to walk on the road and then go back. I mean, bad architecture, bad urban planning is even killing people. Yeah. There's so many aspects we could go on and on and on about that we have just taken for granted, and it doesn't occur to us that this is killing us as a nation and as a people. You know, and when you talk about sustainability, there are some countries that have even taken it to another level where they even provide what do they call it? Vegetative ways for their animals and their fauna and all sorts of things. You know, we have a place like this, and then we pretend to like plants, so we just bring one potted plant here. And,
it's plastic.
One plastic plant. So I think I'm very appreciative of all the comments and the challenges we have, but we should look seriously into these things. And when it comes to development, we have to, with all due respect, do sensible development. I go to Medina a lot, and under the hot sun, you've got so many ramps, and it's easy to just cross over, but somebody's holding a cane and forcing you to walk all around. And we have to look into all those things. And it's architects who can appreciate the cultural context, the beauty, and all those aspects. So green areas, yes, we need them, but we have to start with ourselves. And we as a Ghanaian people, do we believe in this sustainability, or we believe more in let's clear everything? We don't need all the trees, we don't need all the animals that make up. I mean, we have to be true to ourselves. And we have to look beyond just a beautiful building. Pavements. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so,
Madam Moderator, let me say something a little.
we have 1 minute.
1 minute, less than a minute. Now, I've been sitting in the assemblies for 24 years, looking at drawings and applications that I brought. Now, all that my brother has said, the one Tony has also said, yes, they are true, but he never contradicted me. The issue is that sometimes, in fact, most of the time, architects bring drawings that do not meet the requirements. For instance, from the edge of the road to the fence wall, there are a lot of regulations, things that are supposed to be done there and indicated on the drawing. If those details are done, and we keep doing it, and we keep doing it, and we keep doing it, we keep submitting it, I'm telling you that it will become what do you call it? A character, a standard, which is already there. And then you will still come back to what I'm proposing. We will need architects at the assemblies, at the regulatory level, who would help in implementing these drawings. Now, something I wouldn't like to say, but I'll say it. The architect who is working at AMA is paid 500 cedis a month. 500 cedis a month. Can you imagine? But you see, but I still advocate, after working for 24 years in the assemblies and going on pension, I still think that if we don't come to the assemblies, or we don't work for the assembly pro bono, we are not going to get where we have to get to. Thank you.
So, our final question. Everybody is in shock with the 500 cedis. Yeah, you've traumatized us. Architect Tony, do you want to say something?
I'm fellow architects. I have a standing. I've had this standing argument with Tony Ahaji for 14 years or more. I remember one day I applied for a certificate of habitation for a client in Tema, and he said that I was the only person who had applied for a certificate for habitation in 15 years, and that there was something wrong with me. You see, look, my fellow architects, we have to find a way of deciding.
Let me just let you add that to your closing remarks.
Okay, I will.
And we want to end on a positive.
I think I'll do that.
A positive note, the way forward.
Sometimes I realize I really have very little positives to say, but I'll try. You see,
we want to be part of the solution.
You see, we cannot just be optimistic for being optimistic.
True.
Yeah. The structure of our whole setup is just set up for everything to end up almost ugly. No, it is true. You see, we are all architects. We all do some kind of work at, for instance, Airport Hills.
Yeah.
Now, when you try to come up with a design in Airport Hills, first and foremost, they make sure that you are compliant with the law in terms of permit. So they pick up the drawings, they take it to Ladade Kotopon or maybe the Teshunuga people. They make sure that it is done. They come and then they make sure that you are also compliant with their own internal laws. The setbacks, you are not, but even the way you construct, the time you do your construction, making sure that when you construct, you do not have any adverse impact on your neighbors. All of these things is called development control. It's as simple as that. There's nothing more. Now, so the moment we come to a point, I mean, Regimanuel is nicely laid out. Trazaco is nicely laid out. The point is that the moment you try to get a place well structured, there are certain positives that come to revenue mobilization. First and foremost, you can collect higher revenue for property rates. Two, the moment you have the anonymity reduced, you can also pinpoint people who are deviant in your area. The one also advantage for structured environment is security. So when you know that that area is structured, there is always better security in the area. Then again, when the area is properly planned, there are specific areas for play areas, clinics, open public areas, and all of those things. So if you want to have a commercial activity, you drive to a place that is properly designated as a commercial zoned area. You see, so it goes back to my same conversation, and which is that people who manage these enclaves should have a vision of how you want to manage the enclave. That vision needs necessarily to be technical, visionary, and the person must understand that you are setting up a structure to be able to help develop the economy of how people live. There is, just behind Airport Hills, I'm sure you can get rent that is 20% of what you would pay in Airport Hills. It is revenue, right? So all of these things are intertwined. So let's put some of these things in context. The reason why I am not talking about stuff like sustainable recycling, segregation of waste, or all of those lofty ideas is that we are just missing the primary things we have to do.
The basic stuff is missing.
Yes. So I think we need to be able to do the basic stuff. But just to be on the positive side, please, let's engage the Ministry of Local Government. And let's see if we can, when our students are coming out of the universities, they can go and work as national service in the assemblies. If we do that, we tried doing some of this with Ashama, we got Betty Sawyer Dems to join. They were not paying them. After 1.5 years, at a point, we had to go back to go and support them. But the whole structure of employment is also another complex thing. And if we are able to establish the need for architects, planners, engineers, when it comes to our district assembly, then we can then start using them. But even that, we need to be able to start our own advocacy to be able to change the laws and make it better.
Is there no hope outside the governmental structure?
Okay,
because I ask because it's a structure that precedence has shown us has not worked.
No.
And so if we go back to depend on it, are we not setting ourselves up for more future failure?
look, it is the government structure, the whole structure that must work. So first and foremost, we need to be able to find out why it's not working to get it to work. Because everywhere around the world,
it works.
Yes, that is how it is the government structure that sets the machinery to make sure that it works. What we tried to do previously with the Ghana Institute of Architects, the Ghana Institution of Engineering, the Ghana Institute of Planners, was to partner with AMA to be able to carry out some of these activities. A bit of a review of drawings. That's how come we introduced the application in principle, and also we were doing peer review for some of these designs and all that, because we felt that the capacity of some of the architects and the engineers in the assembly wasn't up there to be able to review some of these drawings. I mean, I could see somebody who was a national service person reviewing the drawings of architect Adote Brown. It was a non-starter. It won't happen, you know. So these are some of the things. But the partnership can start. As to how we partner with them, they would have to, the best they can do is to find you lunch and then you go. But at the end of the day, if that partnership is not written into law, such a way that the public servant can take some money and say that, okay, when they came to work, this is how much I pay them according to law, nothing will happen.
So I was thinking of a situation where, you know, every architect gets a plot within the city. And so if every architect, no matter what the situation at the municipal assembly, is able to design in a way that that when we link up several plots together, we are forming a streetscape. We are doing all the things that we're expecting that are not done within our plot. We don't when we are designing on our plot, we are not having a plot mentality, just looking inward, but we are opening up our plot to the city, doing the greenery,
and all
the paving, and all the things that we're benches, all the things that we're expecting. Because I feel like now we think of our fence wall and inward, but we don't consider our fence wall and outward. And I think if we had a chain of plots that were thinking this way, we would soon have a streetscape that was looking presentable.
You see, the whole philosophy of our development in Ghana is the owner of the land. That's all. I mean, there isn't much beyond that one. So whoever wants to come and plan with my land, you have to come and tell me why you are coming to plan with my land. So that's it. You see, if you look at the airport residential area, the Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority decided that they came up with this whole idea of amalgamation of land, where buildings, instead of individual plots, are aggregated so that we can do higher, taller buildings. You know, so that was the whole reason. The point is that if you look at the ownership structure of the land, it could be a second or third generation ownership. The ownership is fragmented. No, I don't even know which kind of government would be bold enough to nationalize the whole of our lands and say that all the land belongs to the state. We will build or we will do the development and give you what is due. It's a political suicide. So some of these things, I think, they are very brilliant ideas on paper. The reason why it doesn't work is that you can't finance it, you can't get a law to back it, you can't get anybody to follow up. You see, so then it comes back to this same plot development. And in fact, if you've been part of this GIA issues going back and forth, Architect Labi and a few other senior architects have really spoken against this plot development instead of precinctual development. We never backed it by any law. We didn't advocate for it. We didn't look for the human resource to be able to do it. We haven't had any funding to be able to do that. So let's start the conversation. It is a conversation worth having. But then, until we get that properly structured for the public servants to show us how some of these things must be done, then we support it with that kind of law. It won't work. But maybe I wish all of us well. Thank you.
So we are out of time, so everybody has 30 seconds.
Wow. I think Tony has spoken for all of us. That's why you are giving us 30 seconds each. That is fine. I have a very simple plea. I think we've been talking more than acting. So anytime I'm given the opportunity to give my closing remarks, I have a mantra and I want to share it with you. That is NATO, N-A-T-O. It means no action, talk only. We've been doing a lot of talking in this country, and it is time we move into action. So anytime you see a bottle of malt, unfortunately I don't have malt here. Anytime you see malt, then think away from NATO, which is no action, talk only, and think of malt. And malt means more action, less talk. Thank you.
I would like to end. By the way, thank you, panelists, for this educative time. I would like to end by saying that we have to paint a picture. What do we want to see in our cities, in our homes? What do we want to dream about? Then for architects, value. We have to be clear as to the value we are giving. Is it value that is relevant to those around us, or it's abstract value that people can't really see what you are contributing to their lives? Are you enhancing their lives? Are you making it better? Or you're just trying to put up a monument to your glory? So let's paint the image, and like you have said, let's put action behind our image. If we want trees, let's plant trees. If we want greens, let's do greens. We have to be able to give the reasons why we should be thinking of sustainable cities and sustainable places and the benefits, the health, all the things that we've talked about that are not directly appreciated. We have to champion that so that people say, okay, now I see it's not just about brick and mortar and a beautiful edifice, but it's a holistic thing that will enhance my life and enhance my activities. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would say again that come to the assemblies. Architects, please come to the assemblies.
Amazing offer, 500
there's
cedis
a lot
a
of
month.
work to do. And let me explain a few things. If we want our cities to be sustainable, the streetscapes, we don't have any landscape master plan. We can come together and have landscape master plans for several areas. Number two, we can have streetscapes now, and then also we can think about how we can handle our drainage. If we do this everywhere in the country, present it to the assemblies, and continue to press and work for free. It's the beginning.
Literally.
So that a lot of work can be, you can get a lot of work to do. If we don't do that, we will not get anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all our panelists. We've learned so much. And I think the takeaway is, I think as an institute, we have to start advocating for the things that need to happen on the governmental level. And our leaders have to start speaking to power and letting them know the things that need to change and the things that we need to do. And I think that we also have a responsibility as individual architects within our environs, within the spaces that we inhabit, work for free. If you are the only architect on your street, why don't you, get your neighbors together and try and improve the streetscape? If you get a plot, don't think of it as just your plot. Think about it as within the context of an urban scape and see how your plot can also contribute to the urban scape. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please, a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you. Apologies. Are there any We can take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. I'll find our panelists wherever they are. You have a question. Honorable Minister has a question.
It's one question I've been asking myself. I know lawyers don't advertise. So how do you find your space? Because I don't see architects also advertising what they have. And secondly, from where I sit, I see a lot of designs all the time. But most of the time, I have to give them my layman's advice to go and, revise the designs, because they come without greens, they come without plans, they come without all that. But we sit here as architects, and we're always blaming the government. But the government is all of us. We all have a role to play. It's a collective effort. Because if you're an architect, you're bringing design to the ministry. You should know what it takes. And finally, I want to know the collaboration between the GIS, the Ghana Institute of Engineers, the Institute of, all the other stakeholders involved in the built industry. Because I have had the opportunity to serve as the chairperson for development planning of AME. That time we had about 13 sub-metros. But I realized that even though we have planners in all the assemblies, I don't know how it stands now, but those times we had planners in all the assemblies, we worked with planners. But before you get your design approved, it has to go through a process. But because all of us, we're all falling foul of the law. You send your design to the assembly, you don't even go through the process, you want to go through the back door, and you sit here and you blame government. So we all have to do the right thing, and it starts with us as architects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Akosi, I thought you were going to talk about our number plate size office signage.
Yeah, so
Yes.
For all professional bodies, we are not allowed to advertise, but we do publish. And then the Ghana Institute of Architects is also one of its roles is the promotion of architecture. So through publishing and through the Ghana Institute of Architects promoting architecture, this is how we make ourselves known. But we do admittedly have to do more in exposing and advocating and educating the public about our role and why it's needed for our services to be used. Mr. President.
How do you intend to bridge the gap between architects and draftsmen? Architects have created, I know, some niche for themselves, and it's difficult for people below the ladder to, engage them. So how do you intend to get down to the middle class and the lower income earners so that we can have good structures and good infrastructure around? Because the informal sector have been left out of the equation, but there's a lot of money in there. So how do you attract them as well?
I think this is part of the advocacy that we have to do, because I think a lot of people are unaware that the scope of your building determines the fees that your architect charges. So if you want a mansion, the architectural fees are a percentage of the mansion cost. And if you want, it's a mansion fee. Exactly. And if you want a low-income house, because it's a percentage of the cost, it reduces itself automatically. But I think a lot of people are not aware of that, Mr. President.
Honorable Minister, thank you very much for the comments. I think that it reflects actually quite a significant section of the public's opinion. Yes. And this is why we're engaging in programs like this tonight. We believe that the more of such programs that we're going to have is going to let the public know the quality of the architect. I have a sentence which I tell people that I wish that ugly buildings were cheaper. And unfortunately they are not. And increasingly as we continue to advertise the works that we do, the public is going to know the difference. As well, there's what I remember that Victor was saying, Sami was saying there's regulations, but it's not being enforced. You find out that even some of the government sectors, ministries, etc., they use technicians to do works. These technicians are probably glorified names for draftsmen. They are not architects, but they are the people who are working at some of these agencies, and they will be doing drawings that are getting built. So it's a campaign that we all need to embark on to let the public know people have been trained for this works. It's not as simple as you see. I meet clients who often say, oh, me, I'm more than an architect, and I start to laugh. If architecture was that simple, we wouldn't have had to go through 6 years, 5 years school training before you end that, and even after that training, go through another 2-3 years of tutelage before you take the professional exams. But ladies and gentlemen, it's a call that we cannot say is not real. A lot of technicians and draftsmen are parading out there, and the public, much of it they lack the discernment as to who is the architect, who is the technician. Most unfortunate. So all of us need to join this campaign, make more noise, showcase the works that we're doing so that people know the difference. And I believe that maybe another few years from now, this conversation will no more be a major thing. I mean, I don't know who continues to say that, oh, should I go to a doctor or should I go to a nurse? It's not even one for discussion. And I believe that in no time we're going to get this whole campaign to that point where it's not a matter of an architect or a technician. A technician is a technician, it's not your architect. Sometimes the shocking thing for me is about even top professionals who still think that maybe their duty is so simple that they'll go and give it to a technician instead of an architect. But we're going to continue this publicity campaign and make sure that people get to know who the architect is, and that it is in their best interest that for all that amount of investment, it cannot be just entrusted into a technician. You need an architect. Ugly buildings are not cheaper. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So mine is more of an. Here comes. Okay. Right.
Okay. Just a few comments that I want to add. One of them is to do with this green environment that we've been talking about. Cecil was talking about beautifying the streetscapes and everything. SM did a beautiful, in fact, I must call it an elegant design for a lady in East Legon. And I was just telling him right now, the lady is very frustrated. What is the reason? She's done a beautiful garden outside what you call the government space, the 3 meters between the road and the fence wall. She's done this nice garden over there. Okay, now this is what's happening. People passing by stop there, not just to sit down. They leave a leg and go. I hope you understand what I mean. Okay. Beautiful house, the stench is all over the place. So she's fed up. She says she wants to do what the other people, the things that we see that we don't like. A barbed wire over there, that's what she wants to do, because our people, we are part of the problem. So I think we must also look at that. I mean, it's not just about doing a beautiful thing. How do we educate our people to really appreciate what we want? Another thing I want to mention is, some years back, my mother was ill. We were running up and down Kolibu for 3 months. Twice a day, sometimes. Eventually, the doctors found out what was wrong with her, and she required 1 injection every 3 months. The cost of that injection was 1 cedi. What I'm trying to say here is that we as professionals offer a certain service. The general public may not seem to appreciate it that much because they see just maybe paper that we print out. But there's a lot of thought that goes into it. And probably through this sort of discussions, they may begin to appreciate that it is not the cost of the injection, but it's the labs and the research and everything that went in to be able to determine that that is a particular injection that was needed. Last thing that I'll add on is, yes, A few years back, there was a master planner. He was supposed to be, I think, one of the master planners for Singapore. He was in town, Youth I Care. And it was when? Okay. I believe most of you heard or met or had a discussion with him. I had the opportunity to also have a little discussion with him. And I noticed something, because I sat in quite a number of those discussions. In talking with the planners, engineers, architects, he actually left it to his assistants. He was more or less dozing in the background. But he was more interested in talking to the politicians. So I asked him, why? And he said, look, young man, I mean, this is an 80-year-old man talking to me. He said, young man, your development that you want to do in your country starts with your politicians doing the right policies. If we don't have that, I'm wasting my time with all of you. Thank you.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank the GIA Council and membership for acknowledging the sacrifice done by a few of its members in rallying the built environment team to give a free service. And as our senior architect said, it's really paid off. It was a free service, but since we finished it, we've had some little gigs that has really paid for what we did for free. Yeah, so my actual contribution to this is more of an advocacy. Architects like to dream, and beyond the dream, they need substance to actualize it. What good is it to keep dreaming like the talk only without action? They also need to survive. What I'm advocating for is the competitions. We need to really make it a very efficient and sustainable, if I may put it that way. In this time, I don't think any architect should lack a job. In a developing country like Ghana, where we have projects coming all the time. A typical example is the Abogloshi market. It was just cleared. So we wonder, what is going to happen there? Is it a private man going to develop? If it's government, where is the competition coming on? We have the Bujumburam camp. There are so many projects, large-scale projects about to happen. But ideas are not only in a specific group of architects, whether old or young. So we need to make a competition system run. Every point in time, we should have a competition coming out of the GIA. And the members will really find it worthy of being members of the GIA. And the GIA is also the only body that can attest to quality of architecture, not just the graphics. So I'm advocating for a lot of competitions. I mean, this month we should have 2. Every month we should have at least 2 coming out. So many projects around. So that's my contribution. Thank you.
Competition brings excellence. Any more questions?
Thank you very much. This is not a question, just 2 small points I would like to make. I think during the course of the panel discussion, it became quite clear that we need to get out of our comfort zone. As Nanakia would say, awake. But the hard truth is that not every architect will run a practice. People talk about architects, and immediately you think about you're running a practice somewhere. But there are so many other ways in which architects can make a difference. If we're talking about achieving the sort of cities that we want, then you need architects at local government level. You need architects in academia, training the next generation of architects. You need architects at certain levels of governance, the people making the policies. If they don't understand what it means, and you talk about sustainable cities and this, that, and the other, they're going to look at you out of the corner of their eyes. And because you cannot engage with them at a meaningful level, you will not have an input into the policies and the programs that are necessary for us to achieve the sort of society that we're looking for. The second point is, Tony will tell you, it has been so many years, which the GIA has tried to engage with the district assemblies. Even in my time, we tried to do that. Government was very receptive. The resistance came from the assemblies. Why? Because there were people there with vested interests, and they saw the architects or the built environment professionals as being imposed on them. So this collaboration has to be packaged very well so that it becomes a win-win situation for all. Otherwise, we will keep on, like a dog chasing its tail. So these two things, we need to get out of our comfort zones. And that is why I have a lot of respect for people like Kwame Agboja and Gisela, and, they've moved out of mainstream architecture, as it were, and they are up at a level where they can make an input into policies. Because our politics in Ghana is based on personalities. It's not policies, plans, or programs. And you need to be able to cultivate a lobby at the very highest levels before you can drive any agenda. So let's look at ourselves and look at the niche where you can make most difference. We need architects as administrators in the hospitals, in the assemblies, in the banks, and so on. But we need architects at the top level of governments. And I think this is where the Nigerians have beaten us. Throughout all of our history, I think we've had Namprechum and Steve Akufo at ministerial level, right? We've had architects as members of parliament, and that's it. Nigeria has produced 2 vice presidents who were architects. They've produced state governors who were architects, cabinet ministers, architects. So we have a lot to learn from them, and it is showing in the way the built environment professionals engage with government. So let's be up and doing.
Thank you very much, Past President Ivan Samu. I personally, when I think about this, the future of our cities, one of the things that I see as a menace, really, is dust. Dust, dust, dust. I tell people that when I was designing my home as an architect, and excited that I want to create a space which will have good light and ventilation and all of the things that I believe that a home in Ghana should have. And then I did all of that. And then each day I'll come to my home, maybe I'll get guests and I'll bring them in. Honorable Minister, thank you so, so much. Thank you so, so much. And then one day, my wife told me that, we can't keep opening these windows and doing this, your natural ventilation. I said, oh. But he said, do you know every day we have to dust everything in this house here? So after a while, they shut all the windows, and then pop goes my natural ventilation and my natural dust. That, please, I think that the way we can stop this dust thing is about covering as much surface as possible with greens. Covering as much surface as possible with greens. So let's embark on it. Thankfully to God, we have a good round the year climate. Anything we plant or something, it's going to survive. So let's do more of that. We'll see that we have less dust. You get a car that is 10 years old from, out there, and it looks so new. A car that's been used for 1 year in Ghana, the interior of it is so, the dust is the real menace. So for me, the future of our cities, I don't think that we must look to only the buildings and things like that, but if our open spaces and things can all be covered as much as possible, because I enter homes in Europe, in America, and I feel that many of them are very comparable to the kind of things that we do here. But then beyond the home or beyond the office building, that immediate space out there, really, that's where we're not in good comparison at all. So many of us concern ourselves continually with just that plot. Please, let us begin to be concerned about beyond that plot, even that space that is, say, the no man's land or the public space. Let's begin to develop or design for that space. It's going to help our cities. Thank you very much, Akosi. It's been beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. I hope that was the last of our contributions and questions. Can we take one more?
Thank you very much. I think it has been a fruitful day, and I would like to thank current council for such output of work, and I also would like to highlight few issues as brought up by a senior architect, Ivan Sanfom. He made critical observations, and I want to highlight some of them. Architects must be very interested in politics. Like Frank Lloyd rightly said, architect is not just a master of building, but a builder of social structure. And one of the bedrocks of every social structure, it is politics. As far as we interrelate with other people, we must be very interested in politics. Politics are playing at the local government level. You send your drawing because you are a chartered architect, and the very person to audit your drawing is a technician. How do you think we can get across these people? We can't, because recently I submitted drawings for permit, and it was turned down on the basis that the site plan, which was a cadastral site plan, does not have the adjoining properties stated on it. And I understand the politics, so I only talk to whoever is making that assertion in the political manner, and quickly they have to pass the drawing. And I told them, look, use GPS and I get the adjoining properties and it is done. But I told my client that, look, this is the language they speak. They just want to be involved in the design in terms of also getting something small at their level. And if we must take these things seriously, it's about time we push the agenda of one district, one architect, and that is the task of the current council. And I believe strongly when we push that agenda, we have to start from the top. Let the decision makers understand clearly the cost-saving factor when they use professionals. We must make it a realistic policy for them. We must, GI as an institution must go there with a common front and let the presidency, let the parliamentarians understand. Even if it takes that, GIA Council should make a presentation on the floor of Parliament. We must do that, because that is where it has gotten to. We cannot take it anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And on this note,
please, I just want to support what he's saying. But let me tell you something. Planners, they have advocacy in Parliament. I'm telling you. Development control comes under planners. Architects are not involved at the assembly. The law supports them because they have made that policy. They made sure that they had the numbers and they put the policy in place. What about architects?
okay, so please briefly.
Hello, I want to congratulate the Ghana Institute of Architects. My name is Estelle. I'm a realtor, so that's a big deal for me. I've learned a lot, and I just want to urge all architects to do what you do. Without your plush, realistic designs, people like me can't sell well. So keep up what you do. Keep up what you do, and I look forward to a day we can sit and celebrate a beautiful city in Accra and around Ghana. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you all. Time is fast spent. Without further ado, I'll call on Architect Klocho Okai Gauga to give us the vote of thanks. Please give it up to her as she comes forward. I know you are all tired, but Alice, please. Thank you.
Good evening once again to all of you. I think we can all agree that this event has been very successful, starting off with the exhibitions. Yes, let's give a round of applause to everyone, first of all. Our Honorable Minister is not with us at the moment, but I think it's important that we still say thank you to her. She has been very dynamic in her engagement. We can all agree that she came and wasn't passive, she was very active. And so we say thank you to Dr. Frida Prempe, who's the MP for Tana North constituency, and also a Minister of State. We'll also say thank you to the ARC board members who are present here. Thank you for your continued support. We thank the Council of the GIA, of course. And of course, the panelists, they were really super. Thank you so much. We had a stimulating conversation with them. And we hope that even when we leave here, the conversations will not end here, but they will go on into our offices, the boardrooms, so that we can move this to implementation. Of course, thank you to our architects here. It wouldn't be successful without you. Thank you so much for showing up and showing out. It's a full room, as you can all see. Thank you for the exhibition, of course. We have to say thank you to the sponsors. We had quite a few of them, but we'll say special mention to Saint-Gobain, the ARG Lips, X Interior, and Crown Paints. Thank you all so much for making this possible. And to the general public, to all the participants, we know this wouldn't be the same without you. It's been very lovely having all of you here and engaging all of you in today's celebration. And to, of course, finally, last but not the least, the planning committee. This has been a very successful event. Thank you to Nanekia and the team, the dynamic team. And we hope to see more of this, I forgot to mention the moderator, Akosia. You did an excellent job with the moderation. Thank you. So thank you. Have a lovely evening, and we'll meet you again soon.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Architect Klocho. Please, you end with the final closing prayer. The one who led us in the beginning will gladly lead us in the end. Architect Kojo Deban.
So I love doing this. Let's pray. Our Lord and Master, we thank you for such an evening. You have shown us that you have touched our minds. We ask you to imbue us with the spirit of nationalism. Build in our hearts a love for our nation, which is at the bottom of all the things we say. All our dreams, all our aspirations are because of what you have given us in our hearts to show. We thank you for this evening. We know that we are all going away with something in us to improve this land that we have. God bless Ghana, and we thank you, God. Amen.
Thank you very much. On that note, we thank you all for coming. You can network and take photographs. Yes, so we have photography and networking, so you can network and take photographs. And there's also refreshments outside. And may the good Lord lead you safely back to your homes. Please, the panelists and the council members, GIA council members and the panelists, can we have you in front for a photograph? The panelists and GIA council members. For a quick one. Panelists, GIA council members, can you come up here for a photograph?